Good evening, everybody. I think it's 15 minutes out of time, and I think we must begin. First of all, I would like to thank you that you have come to Zagreb. As you can see, we have tried to organize everything for you to make feel you good here in Zagreb, not only tonight, but just this couple of days that you will be here. This is a traditional dinner, but sort of a changeable, I would say. As you know, some of us have been sitting together recent years. Mostly there were national coordinators or the people who were engaged in more or less in this issue. This year we have, how to say, a new way, a new structure of this first gathering before the International Steering Committee. As you can see on the podium, on the table, there are 4 panelists and 1 moderator who will very soon introduce about the subject. And I won't take much of your time. Enjoy your dinner, be active in the discussion tonight, and of course enjoy here in Zagreb this couple of days. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I didn't have a chance to go and visit every table individually, so I'll just explain what I'm asking you to do right now. Here we have a voting system where you're just putting a star next to a yes or no. Before you hear the debate tonight, I would just like to get a sense of how many of you are in favor of continuing the decade after 2015 and how many of you feel it just might not be a good idea. And then after the debate, we're going to have another round of votes. So just when you get this piece of paper, just so that you know what is expected of you. What do you feel right now before the debate? Yes or no?
Okay, we can start now. I'm Hannah. I'm going to lead you through this debate. First of all, I would like to ask you for your patience because none of the panelists or myself, and I guess most of you are not native English speakers. So there will be moments when we will need time to find the words. That's first. And we got the results of the votes. I see you're not critical, so we'll try to ask you to be critical now, because the majority thinks that decade should continue after 2015. So let me start telling a little bit about the decade, which is our topic today. Enlargement of the European Union has increased the mainstream awareness of the situation of Roma communities and highlighted the challenges that their marginalization poses to Europe as a whole. Roma suffer discrimination despite current laws designed to protect them. Roma often live isolated from and despised by the rest of the population. Employment opportunities for Roma are restricted due to deeply rooted prejudice. Roma children are sent to special schools for people with disabilities without evidence that they have any handicap. Naturally, there are complex economic, social, and political reasons behind such widespread discrimination. Unfortunately, racism against Roma is socially acceptable. Until now, governments have often shrunk from tackling this issue, aware that it's politically unpopular. It will take time to win popular support among majority population. Existing prejudice and stereotypes which have been ingrained in society cannot be simply abolished by command. The most efficient way to break down existing barriers is through initiative from both sides. The decade of Roma inclusion 2005-2015 is a hope for change. The decade of Roma inclusion is unprecedented political commitment by European governments to improve socio-economic status and social inclusion of Roma. The decade is an international initiative that brings together governments, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations, as well as Romani civil society, to accelerate progress toward improving welfare of Roma and to review such progress in a transparent and quantifiable way. The decade focuses on a priority area of education, employment, health, and housing, and commits governments to take into account other core issues of poverty, discrimination, and gender mainstreaming. But does the decade work? Is it the appropriate mechanism? This debate is organized as a starting point to brainstorm and argument proposals on the future of the decade, without having a burden of responsibility for the decision. We have 4 panelists here, 2 for the motion and 2 against the motion. One thing I would like to stress is that panelists are not expressing their ideas or ideas of their organization, but they're just asked to throw in ideas and this debate to simulate reality as you have a nice meal gives you food for your thought. So let me introduce you the panelists. On my left side is Valentina Petrust from Open Society Foundation in Slovakia, and Ljiljana Šantić from Ministry for Human Rights and Refugees of Bosnia and Herzegovina. On my right side, there are Gabor Daroci, Roma Veritas Foundation Hungary, and Nadir Recepi, Open Society Foundation Budapest. Okay, we can start with the debate. I like to ask Valentina to start with her 5 minutes opening word.
Just tell them that it's not our own opinion.
I said, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure, but in one hand and in the other hand, it's a hard task to be the first speaker and to offer to you some main argumentation, some good reasons why a big yes for the decade. I'm very happy to see here known faces, which reminds me having some snapshots year 2003 when we had a big, huge conference in Hungary, Roma in expanding Europe. Then year 2005, I'm linking some faces to the year 2005. It was the launch of the decade in Sofia in Bulgaria. And now it's year 2012, and we are here together, maybe in some same people, but also new people aboard, which is also great that new people are coming to work with us in this issue. And what to say about the decade? I'm involved in the decade activities for many years, and the fact that people from 2003 are here today shows to me, and also people from the governments, from state institutions, that the decade it's a unique opportunity of bringing together, of networking state institutions, governments, international organizations, intergovernmental organizations, civil society, and Roma civil society. Also, the decade offered us during these years the opportunity to exchange experience, but also failures, to exchange good practices, but also less good experiences. The decade is a wonderful opportunity for capacity building. If we are talking about capacity building in terms of supporting institutional capacity building or individuals, but also strategic development for governments and state institutions. I see the decade as a platform for multicultural advocacy and opportunity to influence policy from the local level to the national, and now happy to see and to hear that also European Commission came aboard, and European Commission is getting very involved and use the decade priorities, decade national action plans, and decade main ideas and values as a stepstone for EU framework, and then for the national Roma integration strategies at the national level. I have here some notes, but it's really, it makes me feel better, you know, because I'm a bit stressed, because all of you, you're supposed to eat now and not only to look at me. So try to cooperate a bit. So what else about the decade? I'm very optimist, but from time to time I'm also very pessimist, because I know that I mentioned year 2003, year 2004, year 2005. We are full of expectations and enthusiasm, but also few of us, we are also very aware of the fact that this is not easy. This is not an easy task. It's not easy to cope with such a huge package of issues and problems. And in time, sometimes we do feel this like an unfolding drama that only problems, and not really big results. But the results are there. The results are in our hands, and the results are also showing us where we are, and maybe this is good. I think that this format for this evening is wonderful, because give us the opportunity to stop, have a look behind, look around, and also think about the future. What we have achieved, where we are now, and what we are going to do. If we are going to do something, if we are going to continue. Also, I do think that thanks to Dedicate, thanks to Dedicate, for the first time, we highlighted the problems of Roma in Central and Eastern Europe as an European problem, and then also in Western European countries. And for the first time, and this is for me very, very important, I'm working in this field of human rights for years, and vulnerable groups used to be migrants and asylum seekers previously. It was for the first time when we started to talk about anti-discrimination, about reducing poverty, and about gender issues relating Roma. Thank you very much for now.
Okay. Thank you to Valentina. I would now like to ask you for questions. One. Valentina?
Vali, thank you for your positive feedback about the Dedicate. I had more questions, but I am allowed only to give one question. So, when you say that the Dedicate is not easy, or you say that it's complex process dealing with Roma problems, I'm trying to simplify it and to say, and to ask myself, why is it so complex to deal with Roma? Because compared with their number, they are just 12 million within the 600 or 700 million citizens of Europe. If we go to the demands that they are raising or pressuring the authorities, why it is complex? What kind of problems or demands that they are raising, and then where this complexity comes to the Roma problems?
Okay, thank you, Nadir. Thank you for your question. That's a good question, in fact, which offers more arguments for this affirmative standpoint. The complexity comes, first of all, from centuries of injustice and ignoring and neglecting. The complexity comes from the fact that the situation, the subhuman situation of a certain group of people living in these conditions is not unbearable anymore. And it is very complex, because if you are starting and if you are analyzing very detailed, you can see very simply that no jobs, no decent life conditions, very low level of education, or the quality of education is really very low, which is very sad in 21st century. No political representation, no established very well network. And what is very sad that in many countries in Central and Eastern Europe, Roma are not a relevant partner for the government side. So I think that are many reasons why I said that it's a complex problem, and it's demanding a complex approach to be solved.
Gabor?
Thank you, Valentina. To be honest, we share your position that sometimes you are pessimist. I'm pessimist always, almost always. But would you be so kind, please, to answer me this simple question? What is the achievement what was done only because of the decade?
Only because of the decade. If I'm not mistaken, in Central and European countries after 1989, we didn't have too many strategies and policies and coordinated efforts in tackling this issue. And what I see as positive, and I'm not going now to comment how it was, how detailed it was, how perfect was the first national action plans for the decade when it was, if I remember well, it was year 2004 in Hungary. It was in Hungary when we prepared the national action plans, or 2003, okay, thank you. And then from that moment, I think that we are able to develop more and to offer this idea, this framework for next more well-developed national strategies for Roma.
I would now like to ask Gabor to have his 5 minutes.
Thank you for the possibility. First, to introduce myself for those who don't know me, my name is Gábor Daróci. I'm the director of Roma Veritas Foundation. But before this, I used to work for many ministries in Hungary in the past 15 years. Just to reflect what Valentina has already said, there are many things what we don't agree on. I don't see too much capacity building in the past time, and I don't see too many things what has changed, and I don't see the involvement of the EU bodies on that level what it has to be. And the second one, your very few first sentences were that you saw many known faces. Actually, I have to admit, I was there in 2003, in 2005, and later on. I saw so many new faces what I have never seen. And we are almost at the middle of the decade. But why I am telling that the decade shall close? Because of three things. The first thing is the commitment of the government. I mean, not the Hungarian, all of the governments. I don't see that person who is a stable, responsible, able to decide, to be there always, and as a focal point or whatever goes through the whole decade, or at least the rest of the decade. You still have 3 years. I recommend to have a kind of ambassador next to each of the governments. But on the other hand, I don't see the commitment of the NGO side. Many cases we can see lack of own ideas. NGOs, they just don't come with clear, open and written ideas how the decade should be used, what it has to change, or whatever. And in many cases, we do see no show-ups during these meetings. People promise that I'm coming. They call the office, they brand the whatever, organize the meeting, they travel, and people just don't show up. And I say the decade shall be closed because the system made its own conference junkies. People believe that decade is just a place where they can go and to visit Zagreb, Budapest, other cities and whatever. This is my first point. The second point why I think that decade shall be closed because of the lack of financial commitment from the side of the governments. Most of the money which used for these Roma programs are EU funds. Money from own pocket, governmental money, should be used, whatever the size and the proportion is, but it should be a significant amount. You cannot forget that EU funds, in many cases, because of the way of spending, is just making the gap between Roma and non-Roma even bigger. Later on, I can tell you examples. I do say that governments should put much more money from their own pocket, and it should be much more reallocated and earmarked money for Roma programs. My third point, why the decade should be closed, is the future. Honestly, guys, have you seen any strong change in the past 7 years? Huh? Our children are still in the same segregated school. In many cases, our neighbors live in the same circumstances. The health status of the people didn't change that much. But tell me if I'm wrong. And to be honest, the EU Roma framework is there. It's a written document. I'm sure that all of you have read. Have you? Hands up. Who have read? Not that many. But anyway, I don't see the procedure and I don't see the steps how this EU framework, which is a quite okay document, is going to be a responsible, quality controlled and good system. I don't see these things how are going to work. So these are my three talking points, 3 reasons why the decade should be closed right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?
Okay, I would like to ask a question for Mr. Gabor. I'm Nina Šantić, coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ministry for the Human Rights and Refugees. You mentioned you would like to have, you mentioned government commitment and some kind of person like ambassador to be sure that the decade will be fulfilled all the obligations. I disagree with you. What does it mean? Can you explain to me? What does it mean if we have only one person or ambassador? We in the Ministry for Human Rights and Refugees, we are a very good team. We are lucky that we have our minister that is our ambassador. But together with him, we are like a team that is working on the same issue. So I disagree, and I think that we need a team devoted to this issue. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good question, but I could ask back. Are you sure that your minister will be the same in the next 3 years at the end of till the end of the decade? But I'm sure that it's not the real question. The problem is that it can be everything. Politics can change from one day to the another. And I do say that Roma NGOs, Roma everyday people, Roma policymakers or Roma politicians, and the whole country needs a stable team, if you like this. But on the top of the team, someone who is responsible, has the power to initiate programs, and has the possibility to talk openly, someone has to be there. And you cannot spare this time, and to spare the time to have this person, or to educate, or to create, or I don't know, or taken from the Mars, but someone has to be there.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay, thank you, Gabor, for your for sharing your thoughts with us. And I would like to ask the audience to don't believe on the first sight these rhetorical tricks. It's very easy to say this is not good, this doesn't work, this is no. Okay, I'm gonna buy your product. I'm going to buy the thing that we are missing commitment. It's messy with this financial issue as always, and about the future and about EU tasks and whatever. Sell me a better alternative in this moment. Thank you.
Better alternative. Please don't consider all of my words like pure and the only one words. If I say that decade has to be closed, it means decade has to be closed like it is right now. But it has to be changed. but dramatically and quickly. We are more than a half has already spent of the decade. So when I say that it has to be closed, it means it has to be changed, but dramatically.